Located just southwest of Sweden with a population slightly larger than Norway despite its small size is Denmark, which is also ranked as one of the happiest countries in the world. I'm Kalie, this is Expats Everywhere Explores.
And I'm Josh. Here at Expats Everywhere Explores, we give you information on the practical aspects of living in and even visiting different countries around the world. The place we're focusing on today is Denmark.
Denmark has been around since about 700 AD. During that time, it was considered the Kingdom of Denmark and actually included the Faroe Islands and Greenland. This is also around the time when the Danish monarchy began and when the Danish Vikings were active.
If you've watched our country guide on Sweden, you might remember that Sweden, Norway, and Denmark were all at one point involved in the Kalmar Union around 1397. Sweden eventually broke away from this union, which resulted in a war between the three countries called the Northern 7 Years' War, which lasted from 1563 to 1570.
Denmark's current capital is a city that you have likely heard of, Copenhagen. While it wasn't always the capital, it was officially recognized as the capital around the 15th century. Before that, a city called Roskilde was the capital for about 3 centuries.
Naturally, as the capital, Copenhagen is by far the most populated city in Denmark with around 1 million people as of 2025. Following Copenhagen is Aarhus, with less than 300,000 people, and Odense with less than 200,000 people.
One interesting fact about Denmark is that it's actually made up of almost 1,500 islands, but of those islands, only around 400 are actually named and only around 70 are inhabited. Of the 3 most populated cities, only Aarhus is actually located on the peninsula of Denmark. Odense is located on a different island, and Copenhagen is located on 2 different islands, so keep that in mind when you're planning a visit here. Lego was invented by a Dane in 1949, and the very first Legoland is here.
If you're a Disney fan or just a parent, you might associate Copenhagen and Denmark in general with the Little Mermaid statue that was inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale. But that's just one of the many things to do and see in Copenhagen.
If you're a foodie that loves fine dining restaurants, Copenhagen is the place for you. It's regarded by some as a culinary capital, and many different Michelin star restaurants are here. But keep in mind that fine dining does come with a high price.
Especially in Copenhagen. Coffee lovers beware, because Copenhagen has some of the most expensive prices for a regular cappuccino in the world at around $6 to $7 for a cup of coffee.
Yikes, that is a lot, and they better have some of the best cappuccinos in the world, which actually, to be fair, they do have really good coffee in Copenhagen.
They do. What a great scene. So the currency in Denmark is called the Danish krone, which currently around 1 Danish krone is about 16 US cents, and that means that 10 US dollars will get you around 64 Danish krone.
At an inexpensive restaurant in Copenhagen, the prices tend to be around 25 USD. A 3-course meal for 2 at a mid-range restaurant will cost around 120 USD. Or if you're looking for something cheaper and maybe something enjoyable for the kids, you can find a McMeal or something like a sort of combo like that at McDonald's for around 15 USD.
Yeah, and if you need to burn off some of the calories after you've just consumed all that food, that should be pretty easy because you should be able to enjoy riding bikes.
Cycling is extremely popular in Denmark, with more than 12,000 kilometers of cycle tracks and lanes in the country. It's also very flat with no mountains, which means never really having to bike uphill. It's a common mode of transportation though.
Riding a bike in Copenhagen is the most popular method of transportation. Fun fact, there are about 5 times more bicycles than cars.
But if you prefer slower, more relaxed methods of transportation so that you can enjoy the views, there are plenty of different boat tours that you can try because the city is practically surrounded by waterways.
That's not all there is to do in Copenhagen though. It's full of historical buildings, modern architecture, and has a vibrant nightlife. In the heart of the city is one of the oldest amusement parks in the world called the Tivoli Gardens.
Copenhagen experiences comfortable, partly cloudy summers while winters are long, cold, snowy, and often windy with mostly overcast skies. Throughout the year, temperatures usually range between 29 and 71 Fahrenheit, rarely dipping below 17 or climbing above 79.
If you plan on visiting sometime during the summer, make sure to bring a rain jacket and umbrella because Copenhagen does get rain all throughout the year, and some sources even say that the summer months are the rainiest there, so be sure to be prepared for that.
And don't be worried about feeling the need to learn some commonly used Danish phrases before moving here because English is widely spoken, not only in Copenhagen, but all throughout the country. Around 80% of Danes speak English as a second language because it's mandatory in schools from a young age.
All right, so let's move on to the second most populous city called Aarhus. From March through December, Aarhus hosts many different events, including music concerts, festivals, markets, marathons, and more. It has a fair amount of cathedrals, palaces, and museums to offer as well. Because of all the nightlife and activities going on, there's definitely more of a youthful vibe there.
While there is a huge difference between the populations of Copenhagen and Aarhus, there isn't so much of a difference between the prices and cost of living. So while you can expect to pay less there for food, groceries, and other necessities, there probably won't be a huge difference in prices.
Besides the expensive prices, another thing that Aarhus and Copenhagen have in common is the weather and temperatures. Both have pretty mild summers and cold winters with lots of rainfall.
Now let's move on to Odense, the third most populated city in Denmark. We previously mentioned the Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen, but Hans Christian Andersen, the author of that fairy tale, actually grew up in Odense. There you can visit his childhood home as well as a museum dedicated completely to him.
Odense is a great place for the whole family because it offers a lot of parks and playgrounds for kids, along with a couple different zoos. Some of the other attractions include a castle, its modern harbor, and its cycling culture.
One big aspect of the culture that most Americans probably don't know about is the sports scene in Denmark. And no, it's not football or soccer. The sport that Denmark is very proud of is called handball, and it's probably not the same handball that you played at recess.
Yep, handball is a fast-paced team sport where 2 teams of 7 players compete to score by throwing the ball into the opposing team's goal. The game is played in 2 30-minute halves, and the team with the most goals at the end wins. It's a very aggressive yet fun sport to watch.
Denmark as a whole is known for having good teams in the men's and women's league. And until he retired recently, a Danish player called Mikkel Hansen was the best in the world and even one of the greatest of all time.
So if you're looking for something to do that is a part of Danish culture, but not super touristy, watching a handball game is a great option. And Odense specifically has a great professional women's team.
All right, but that's enough about sports talk. Let's dive into the practical costs of living in Denmark as a whole. The estimated monthly cost for a family of 4 is about $4,500 excluding rent. And the estimated monthly cost for a single person is around $1,300 excluding rent.
All right, we currently live in Portugal, and just to give you a comparison of the cost of living between the 2 countries, Denmark is on average 61.9% higher than in Portugal. And the rent in Denmark is on average about 14.5% higher than in Portugal.
Now keep in mind that rent prices vary a lot depending on which city you live in, the quality of apartment, and where it's located. But on average, the rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in the city center is around $1,200, and an apartment outside would be closer to $1,000.
Yep, and if you're looking for a little bit bigger of an apartment, like a 3-bedroom apartment, you can find some for around $2,000 in the city center and around $1,500 outside of the city center. Basic
utilities such as electricity, heating, cooling, water, and garbage for, let's say, an 85-meter square apartment would cost around $230, and a normal mobile phone monthly plan will be around $20.
Yep, and as we've mentioned throughout the video, cycling is a huge part of Danish culture. But if you're not a big fan of riding bikes like me, and you don't plan on having a car, then public transportation is still an option. You can get a one-way ticket for local transport for around $4, and a monthly pass might cost you around $90. Of course, if you have kids, then getting a car or using public transportation will be the better option.
Speaking of kids, let's talk about the schooling options. Denmark offers both public and private. You also have a mix of different international schools that are around the country, but most are located around Copenhagen.
Yeah, public international schools in Denmark are tuition free, just like regular public schools. Classes are primarily taught in English, but all international schools are required to provide at least 2 hours of Danish instruction per week. So you don't have to worry about your kids not learning Danish if you enroll them in an international school.
So whether you choose a public or private school, Denmark offers solid educational options for both locals and expats. But learning isn't the only thing Denmark takes seriously. Next up, let's talk about something that's just as important, the healthcare. Here's what you need to know about staying healthy in Denmark.
All right, in Denmark, seeing a doctor or going to a public hospital won't cost you a thing if you're covered by the national health insurance system. It's part of their universal healthcare. If you need a specialist, that might be free too, or at least partially covered, as long as you got referred from your doctor.
While things like prescriptions, dental care, and chiropractic visits aren't completely free, they're often subsidized. And good news is if you have kids, anyone under the age of 18 gets free dental checkups.
In Denmark, your health insurance card, often called the yellow card, is basically your golden ticket to the healthcare system. You'll need it for things like doctor's appointments and hospital visits, and it even works if you're in Greenland or the Faroe Islands. Just keep in mind, it doesn't cover everything. Prescriptions and dental care will still come at a price tag.
So you have solid healthcare coverage, good schools, and overall very happy people. But the weather can get cold and it can be expensive. So would Josh and I live here?
Well, let's talk about that. I would say overall, Denmark is a place that we have not explored extensively.
Right.
However, we've been to Copenhagen
several times.
ton.
Yeah.
A
So
ton. No, I'm not even several times, a ton.
Right.
Like we were just recently there.
We've explored Copenhagen a lot, but
Yeah.
as far as the other parts of Denmark, not as much.
Yeah, so Copenhagen specifically is a fascinating city. I do feel like I have to watch out for the bikes. I'm not big into riding bikes. I would prefer to keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
But walking can be a bit tricky.
Right,
Because
I
you've
think
got bikes flying at you at times.
There are a lot of bikes, that's true. I mean, obviously they have bike lanes and it's set up really well for it, but you still have to be on the lookout. So I think if you like riding bikes and you like getting around a city like that, then it's a great place for you. If you don't, there are other options. So I think we would probably not do the bike thing, even though it is popular.
I don't have like one fixed kind of style of like the way a city looks. So for example, I love Singapore, the mix of the modern buildings like glass and steel and the colonial look. Like that to me is a really cool mix. And speaking specifically about Copenhagen, I absolutely love the style that we see there. I love all of the canals and being able to like see one little island from another, and it's very cool the way things look there.
I think the city is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Like it just, yeah, you're right. The architecture, the way it looks, the way it's laid out, how they upkeep it, I guess, it's just a very, very beautiful city. And different pockets will have different feels as well, as far as what it looks, and then some more of the greener spaces, some that over by the water will be a little different. So it's actually quite a variety too, I think.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna have to say this as a con, but there's a caveat to it, and the con is the price of things.
Yeah.
So as a tourist, especially like if you're going there with a continental European salary, or you're going there with maybe like USD, it's not great. It feels expensive. I know that the States has gotten more expensive. So like some of the food prices may be comparable to where you're from and where you're watching this from. But like certainly if you're making a salary in Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and then you travel there, and you're changing your euros into krona, and then you're having to like buy whatever food. It's expensive. Grocery stores, not so bad. Whenever we've been, we have like gone shopping for groceries and cooked, and not been that bad. But eating out is
I mean, even something
pricey.
as simple as a coffee being so much more, and then a McDonald's combo meal, like it's just so much more. And that's just some of what we kind of think could be the cheaper things, but they are still pricey.
Now the caveat is obvious, the salary. If you go there and you're earning like a local wage, then that local wage should be enough to sustain you.
Right. So if you're looking to move there and work, then you'll obviously have higher spending power.
Yeah. Taxes, high.
Mm-hmm. But then again, on the other hand, those types of things go towards the healthcare and the schooling.
Yeah.
So while those are high, you do get the benefit of good healthcare, stuff that maybe you don't pay for, or if you do, it's a lot lower because it's subsidized, or really good education. So I think that's also why we see like the happiness index of people overall there is high.
Like socially, people are taken care of.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. The weather, that's complicated as well. I mean, if you're okay with like rainier, let's say gloomier weather and climates, it'll be right up your alley. But if you need sunshine and you want like clear days, they're few and far between.
That could be hard.
Like we traveled there, I think, all times a year.
Yeah, and it still always feels not gloomy, but just not. I mean, we've seen the sun there. I will say that
for sure.
But
and those days are beautiful.
Yeah, and they are really, really nice. But there are a lot of days that are more overcast, and then it does get cold. And again, in the winter, like we mentioned, snowy. So if you like the snow, that's okay, and you like the cold, like you're saying, but that scares me a little bit.
How do you feel about the people?
I think overall they're nice. I mean, they're not outwardly nice like at the first interaction, but when you're at like a coffee shop or a restaurant, you start engaging a little bit, then they start to open up. I do find that they're nice people.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're warm like immediately engaging.
Right.
But they're nice, like you said. So while they're not open, they're not cold, they're warm,
I guess. I don't know.
It's not warm,
No,
but
because I think
like
warm would be a lot more open.
Open.
After the first engagement
Yeah.
or when you're walking by each other.
yeah,
So they're not warm, but they're not cold either.
right. Whatever's in between that.
I don't know.
They're private people, I think. Like it seems that way. So I mean, when people pass each other in the street and they're just like, "Good morning," you know.
Right, yeah.
Bom
Talking
dia.
or smiling. They're just kind of
Portuguese.
like focused and doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a big difference between, like, obviously Copenhagen and the place where we live in Portugal, where it's a lot more of a warmer culture, even with strangers, people you don't know.
I do want to touch on the nightlife because we did talk about that in the main part of the video. We actually have a really good Swedish friend who talks about how his friends will travel into Denmark, not just Copenhagen, but into Denmark for nightlife, which I think is pretty funny because it's like, my guy, isn't your nightlife all right? Like, isn't it pretty good?
Yeah.
But no, it's a thing for them to go over there and party.
So good nightlife.
If you're into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right, are we at that time?
We're at that time. So the question is, Kalie, would you expat that? Would you want to live in Denmark for a certain period of time?
Yes, this one is tricky for me because generally when we do expat places and it's a cold place, I'm like, no, because of the weather. But I really, really like Copenhagen. It's so beautiful. I really, really enjoy it. I guess, so I would say yes, I would expat Denmark. I would expat Copenhagen for sure. On the basis that we're making a good salary and then it probably wouldn't be super long term like the rest of my life because the weather eventually to me would probably be like, I need something warmer. So I would, yes, for like a medium term, I would expat Denmark. Definitely Copenhagen. And you?
I completely agree with that. I feel the same, basically the same way. I would want to move there with a year in mind. Can I do kind of the 4 seasons? Can I survive?
Yeah. Survive.
And then
Go
make
from
my
there.
decision from there. But I think ultimately I would realize, okay, it's probably too cold or not dry enough. And then the other thing is the cost, right? Like we don't earn the type of income to be able to continue doing what we're doing now there. So that would be very challenging.
The caveats for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, we talked about Sweden, so let's talk about Denmark's neighbor. You can watch this video right here where we break down Sweden and what it would be like to live there. Now, let's get moving.